Battles are won with bullets and bayonets, but wars are won with information. By 1778, the American Revolution had reached its dangerous stalemate. The British controlled New York City, their navy ruled the seas. Excuse me. The generals had supplies, reinforcements, and the largest intelligent network in North America. General George Washington, had none of that. What he did have was a problem no army could solve with brute force alone. He needed eyes in enemy territory, inside enemy territories. So he authorized the creation of something entirely new for America, a professional, civilian based spy network operating behind British lines. That network became known as one of my favorite topics of the Revolutionary War, the Culper Spy Ring. Welcome to our republic.
When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands that
sailors and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not one small step for man.
Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be.
we pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
New York City was the heart of British power in North America. From its ports, the British moved troops, supplies, weapons, and intelligence up and down the coast. Loyalists filled the city. British officers moved openly through its streets. Washington's armies camped far outside the city, was blind to almost everything happening on the inside. Without intelligence, Washington risked ambush, invasion, and assassination. The French alliance could be intercepted, supply routes could be destroyed, the war itself could collapse without any warning. Washington needed information long before he needed another battlefield victory. So to build that intelligence network system, Washington turned to Benjamin Talmadge, a young colonial officer with a sharp mind and absolute loyalty. Talmadge didn't build a spy ring using soldiers in uniform. He built it using ordinary civilians. Farmers, merchants, sailors, and shopkeepers. People who moved through British territory every day without raising suspicion. He designated code names, secret links, dead drops, couriers, layered communication so that no single person ever knew the entire operation. If one agent were captured, the rest of the ring could survive. And that design saved lives. So who were the men and women of this ring? At the heart of the operation was Abraham Woodhull, a Long Island farmer who became the ring's primary field collector. Under his code name, he moved quietly between loyalist communities and British-controlled zones, gathering troop movements, naval deployments, and strategic plans. Inside New York City itself worked Robert Townsend, a merchant and printer with direct access to British officers. Townsend overheard conversations in taverns and drawing rooms, watched troop movements, and quietly passed along intelligence that Washington desperately needed. Moving messages between Long Island and the mainland was Caleb Brewster, a fearless sailor who repeatedly crossed enemy lines, patrolled waters under the cover of darkness. If Brewster was caught, the entire ring would be exposed, but he was never captured. On shore, directing the flow of couriers was Anna Strong. Under constant British surveillance, she used simple clotheslines as signaling system. Specific garments hung in specific patterns to communicate when and where intelligence was ready for pickup. Riding long distances through enemy territory was Austin Rowe, who carried messages hidden inside trade goods, coded letters, and business paperwork. His travel took him hundreds of miles through land controlled by the enemy. Inside the city itself operated Hercules Mulligan. Now that's a name. A tailor whose British officers spoke freely in front of him, never suspected the man measuring their coats, was funneling their military plans straight to Washington. None of these people looked like soldiers. And that was exactly the point. And so how did they communicate? Information flowed through the ring in layers. Townsend gathered intelligence in New York. That information passed through safe hands to Woodhull and Long Island. Signals from Anna Strong directed Brewster's nighttime crossing, and Rowe carried coded messages by horseback into Connecticut. From there, Talmadge delivered the intelligence to Washington. Messages were written in invisible ink. Names were replaced with numbers. Entire journals were encoded. Dead drops hid letters in hollow trees, burned out containers, and concealed fences. It was slow, it was dangerous, but it worked. The Culper Spy Ring didn't survive on bravery alone, though. It survived on tradecraft. This is like James Bond before James Bond was James Bond. This was a real spy craft, the kind that turns everyday objects into weapons of secrecy. One of their most powerful tools came from an unlikely source. A New York physician named James J., the brother of John J., who we've talked about. J developed a secret chemical, developed a special chemical invisible ink that became known inside the network as the white ink. And it worked like this. Agents would write an ordinary looking letter about crops, merchants, weathers, family, whatever. Completely boring. Between the lines, they would write hidden intelligence with the invisible ink. To anyone intercepting the letter, it looked harmless. To the right reader, the proper chemical developer, it revealed British troop counts, ship movements, and battle plans. George Washington personally demanded more of this ink because British intercepts were increasing. And by late 1779, Washington was warning Talmadge that normal coded letters were no longer safe. So invisible ink became the lifeline. But the tradecraft didn't stop there. The ring used numerical ciphers, so names were never apparent in writing. Dead drops again, where messages were left in buried containers or trees and all that. False bottom containers and saddlebags. Seam hidden documents sewn into clothing. Signal systems like Anna Strong's laundry line, and layered couriers. So no single person knew the whole route, right? Even the letters themselves were protected. If the courier was captured, he wouldn't be carrying the valuable summary, only a partial piece that wouldn't make sense on its own. This system frustrated the British intelligence completely. They knew a spy network existed. They knew Washington was being warned ahead of time, but they couldn't locate the source. They couldn't prove who was involved, and they couldn't crack the communication system. The Culper Spy Ring wasn't just a brave group of people. It was disciplined, methodical, and years ahead of James Bond at its time. It became the blueprint for American intelligence operations that would follow generations later. Now, what the Culper Spy Ring accomplished as a team was incredible, right? The system tracked British troop movements, warned Washington of invasion plans, exposed loyalist conspiracies, supplied intelligence during the Yorktown campaign, helped uncover the treasonous Benedict Arnold, freaking doofus, protected French naval operations, disrupted British command decisions repeatedly. Perhaps the most remarkable thing of all, not one confirmed Culper agent was publicly exposed during the war. Now, that level of operational security in the 18th century was extraordinary. While cannons thundered at Saratoga, Trenton, and Yorktown, another war moved in silence underneath it all. No uniforms, no medals, no battlefield glory, just risk after risk, message after message, carried through enemy territory by civilians who never revealed what they were truly doing. Washington later wrote that the ring's intelligence was so invaluable that he considered it indispensable to victory. America didn't just win the Revolutionary War with its armies, it won with its secrets. The Culper Ring never charged across battlefield or raised flags over captured forts. Most of its members lived and died without public recognition, yet their quiet war shaped the outcome of the revolution just as surely as a musket line or artillery battery. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen. It means a lot. Remember, history is far from boring. It's the story of ordinary people who moved in silence, passed secrets by candlelight, and helped win a revolution without ever being seen by the enemy. We will see you next time.